Hey, good morning. It's Cynthia with Believer's House, and this is Morning Devotions. This morning we're looking at John chapter 4. Well, what's in John chapter 4? John chapter 4 is the story of the Samaritan woman. Give me just a moment, just to make sure I'm being safe here. And in the story of the Samaritan woman, for those of you who know the story, it's a well-taught story. But she came to the well expecting water, right? She had to come during a time of the day when the other women weren't there, because she was ostracized because of the type of life that she led. And Jesus met her there at the well. Jesus wasn't concerned about being seen with her, even though there were some prejudices between the races, between Jews and Samaritan. The woman was a Samaritan. Not only was she a Samaritan, but she had like 5 husbands and she was living with someone else. So she was truly an ostracized woman. And so many times, we look at people and we think they're beyond help. And I'm so thankful for Jesus, who looks at us. He sees differently than we do, right? The word tells us that Jesus looks on the heart. He doesn't look at the outside. And I'm so thankful that he looked at my heart and he didn't look at the outside of me, because I looked okay on the outside, but I was really such a mess on the inside and I really needed help. And I'm so thankful that he did. But back to the story of the Samaritan woman. So as Jesus began to talk to her about who he was and the water that he could provide for her, she got a revelation of who Jesus was. And we know that the story goes on to say that she dropped her pot, right? That her pot was water so integral to life. We must have water. And they didn't have faucets like we do. We take for granted so many things that we have in our life. Just plain old water here in the United States. We have plain old, good old, can't hurt you, pure water. But in those days, water had to be fetched from somewhere. It wasn't in everyone's home. And so she was at this well at the wrong time of day, because she couldn't go with the women because of the kind of life that she lived. And there was a Jew, a man, number one, and number two, a Jew speaking to her, telling her about a living water. And she got a revelation of who Jesus was, and she ran back to the city, and she dropped her pot and left what she was doing, because what he had to say meant more to her than where she was at the moment. So the points I want to make here today are 2 things. First of all, we know many people will pick up on the fact that she was probably one of the first evangelists, right? Women have a tendency to grasp spiritual truths rather quickly. We have that relational aspect, and we tend to be able to discern things. And I think it's because of our upbringing and being in the place that we are as women, that we learn very quickly to assess things, and sometimes we're really good at it. And so she assessed and got a revelation that this is the real thing, this is the Messiah. And she ran back to town, left her pot, and she said she was going to tell them that there was a man that told her everything that she did. And I wondered if some of the men in town were thinking, I better go find out what this guy thinks about me. We don't know that, but we do know that she became the first evangelist. We can speculate about all those things. So that was the one point I wanted to make, is that it's important that we get a revelation of who Jesus is, and that not only do we keep it for ourselves, but we share it with other people, of who Jesus is to us. What has he done for us? What has he shown us? And I think it's very important as women and men that we share who Jesus is. He didn't just come for us, he came for others. And he also instructed us to share what we have. And so that means to share of the revelation of who Jesus is in our life. It's called a testimony. Secondly, I want to point out in this chapter, and I've mentioned it a couple of times in my little rendition or summary of the story, that she left her pot. What is it that we're doing in our life so much that we are unwilling to leave our pots for and go and tell others about Jesus? Now, I'm not telling you to sell your house and move to Tahiti, and for some reason I always pick on Tahiti. I don't even know where Tahiti is. But I do think that there are times that God wants us to leave whatever we're doing and pursue a spiritual purpose rather than a natural purpose. And so what is the pot that Jesus is asking you to leave today to embrace a new spiritual purpose? what is it that we're doing? And you know, in our home group, in our group, and we're getting ready, Believers House is getting ready to launch to a new location, but in our home group, we have talked often about the doors that God has opened for us, in which a lot of the time we failed. God opened a door for us to share his truth, and we fail. And so we've talked about that, and we've asked for God's forgiveness and asked him to send us more opportunities to share who he is. So we've been convicted about pots that we wouldn't lay down. And so I'm asking you today, what pot do you have? What is it that you're carrying? What errand are you on? What purpose are you so focused on that we're missing out spreading the gospel? I'm not telling you to leave your job. I'm not telling it, but I know that there's one thing that Jesus can show you that you can do to help spread the gospel. Ask him about it today. I'm certainly going to. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.